Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope everybody has had a great start to their week. Kicking off Monday, we are continuing to see some optimism in the market ahead of the FOMC meeting, and I could probably be expecting some choppiness tomorrow, but nonetheless, this melt-up rally is still continuing. S&P 500 index is now above 6,600. It's kind of holding above that big resistance point, and it'll be interesting to see here, especially as the QQQ approaches 600. We'll be talking about some of the stocks that are involved within that. We see Palantir that's hanging out, kind of stabilizing right now in this supply zone. Is it getting ready for a decent move after we have the federal rate decision? We see Robinhood coming out and continuing to execute with some great products, including a new fund that I think you guys are going to be excited about. And we're also seeing Tesla making some big moves because someone bought a lot of Tesla shares on the open market. We'll be talking about some other stocks on the watch list. If you're new or a returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and let's pop it up on the screen here. Palantir closes at 171, just kind of hanging out on the day. This is what's interesting about Palantir is that, hey, it kind of trades sideways. What is hanging out here, how it was in the 150s, establishing some strong support. We know that Palantir has had some really good reversals at the 150 and kind of gaps back up here to this 170 area in the supply zone. And, now Palantir is probably just going to hang out here. Then all of a sudden, one day, it's just going to either pop or drop back down. It could drop back down here, of course, to the 150s if you're seeing some selling pressure. But, hey, if we see bullishness, depending what's going to be happening with the FOMC meeting, I'm really interested because we're at a really interesting point right now in terms of, is a little bit of frothiness cooling off? What's going to be the reaction? Is this kind of the buy the rumor, sell the news? What's happening right now? In terms of Palantir, popping up, testing these all-time highs, I think that's also another possibility for that move. I'm looking for more of a catalyst right now. Nonetheless, though, but Palantir is probably just going to be hanging out here in the 171s until we see some volatility that starts to come in. In the overnight hours, right now hanging out here, 170.42, down about 80 cents, really not making any big moves, anything like that. Nothing too crazy to ride home about. Let's talk about Robinhood. We're on Robinhood right now. Robinhood's been doing pretty well too, hanging out here at around 114. Now, ever since their summit, Robinhood has done a good job just kind of hanging out near these all-time highs. It's just chilling near these all-time highs, and cooling off near these all-time highs is not a bad spot. Remember, of course, we had that inclusion into the S&P 500. That actual rebalancing will occur, I think it's actually like next week now, sometime like that, but it's going to be happening relatively soon, where you're going to start to see a lot of people that will start passively buying Robinhood without them even knowing it in terms of the index funds that they're invested in. But the big news for Robinhood today is right here, Hood launches a Robinhood Ventures Fund. This is a closed-end vehicle giving retail investors access to frontier private companies before they go public. Robinhood Ventures is going to be working on investing basically kind of the trendy, new, and upcoming private companies, and now retail public investors can get a piece of the pie. This is long overdue, in my opinion. In terms of being, a private investor, you need to have lots and lots of money, some big credentials, and all this other criteria. Now Robinhood is giving access to the retail market, and this is awesome. I think this is very bullish, and this shows you that Robinhood is continuing to execute at a very rapid pace. And a lot of the other big investment firms, I don't know how they're going to keep up with competition unless there is some big changes. But right now, within the next 5 to 10 years, how are they going to keep out competing, stay ahead of the competition compared to the products that Robinhood is rolling out at a rapid pace? So I'm very bullish on Hood, especially here at these all-time highs. It's like they're still continuing. It's like, hey, what's the next thing for Hood? They roll out with something. So, if this pushes up higher, I wouldn't be surprised. Robinhood does have strong support at that 100 if we do see any type of a pullback, which we'll talk about why that uncertainty is kind of lying ahead here over the next few days, but it's not something that are really holding a huge, I would say, reliance on. Now, let's talk about the next stock, Tesla. It's funny about Tesla, and I haven't traded recently. I did miss out on the big trade that we saw on Friday where Tesla really gapped up. Tesla was down here at like $200, not even that long ago, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, down here in the low 200s. Everybody was going against Elon, and now all of a sudden everybody's starting to love Elon. So you can see here in terms of the rewards paying out to those investors that wait. I mean, that's just coming to fruition right here. Patience really does do well. Sometimes it's like, they say time in the market is better than timing the market, but it's, if you can do both, that's where you can get some really, really good returns. In terms of Tesla, though, gapping up here to 413 and kind of hanging out here above 400 at 413. In the big news catalyst that we have today is a look at this here. Elon Musk comes out buying Tesla stock on the open market for the first time since 2020. So it's over 5 years, half a decade ago. And that's crazy. 2020 is already half a decade ago. He bought 1.9 million shares here on September 12th. The prices were between 371 and 396, and the total cost was about 736 million. This is, Amit, big content creator, coming out here is saying, seems like Elon thinks that the S curve for Teslas, aren't that far away. And we also see some announcement about Grok that's coming as your sidekick for your Tesla vehicles and things like that. So they're starting to roll out, I think, take advantage of a lot of trendiness, a lot of momentum that's behind this current swing in Tesla right now. Awesome to see that. And continuing on here, talking about what are we expecting for futures in the FOMC meeting. Well, the SPY's at 661 right now, up a little bit here, up about 20 cents in the overnight hours. Nothing crazy in terms of the futures, but above this 6600 resistance zone, the bears keep continuing to fumble the bag. Bulls are in control. You can see at 6,600, every dip that we've seen, the bulls have bottomed that back up. Every dip has been bought up pretty quickly over the previous few months. It's going to be interesting to see really what happens here with the FOMC meeting. Trump does pick Federal Reserve Board right here, new member to join the Federal Reserve, Stephen Moran. Stephen Moran, basically just one day before the central bank meets to consider whether to cut interest rates. So we're seeing the futures really not reacting to that much, with volatility. What you are seeing here, though, notching all-time highs, closing above the 6,600 for the first time. In terms of, we have Donald Trump here, positive description of trade talks with China. This is great because these have kind of been put in the back burner, especially with all of the political tensions that we've had recently, all the talk about the FOMC meeting, the labor market, Federal Reserve, stuff like that. So what we're seeing, big technology stocks, Google also having a big push here. Google finally getting some love that I think it deserves. Everybody was kind of sleeping on Google just a few months ago when everybody thought that they were behind the curve, and now look at them. So another big thing, kind of just comparing to Tesla. Look how market psychology does change just with patience. So everything's gone right. They're talking about here, and interest rates right now, the funds futures are pricing in about 100% likelihood for at least a quarter point rate cut, and there's 3 to 5% to see 50 basis points. I don't think we're going to get 50 basis points, but 25 basis points I think is granted right now and could definitely be expected, at least with the market expecting, pricing at 100% likelihood. One of the big things in terms of the market and what are we going to see regarding the actual announcement of that, I think, the market's kind of fully priced in after we saw the gap up last week about, with the labor and the macroeconomic piece of the data that we got, pricing in, that's kind of already priced into the market, that 25 basis point cut at 100% likelihood. Most, definitely, I don't know if we're going to see a lot of volatility due to that. I think we're going to see more volatility, more in terms of what are Jerome Powell's, remarks going to be on the actual future guidance in terms of monetary policy. What's he expecting for rate cuts? What's his remarks going to be regarding the labor market? And it really just depends, how the algo is going to trade this. How is, retail, institutional, how are they going to trade this? Are they going to possibly be, are we going to see some selling pressure and possibly seeing a little bit of a dip? That could definitely be possible. The market could, take about a 3 to 5% cut, but I don't know. I just there's so much bullishness right now, and if it does, then hey, I would welcome it. More cash. That's what's saving up more cash to buy on those dips. That's the opportunistic cost right there. In terms of that opportunity, I think but playing both ways is aside right now. There's a lot of bullishness, AI still across the market. That right now I'm just not seeing signs of some crazy weakness. Yes, the labor market's is continuing to show signs of weakness, but right now we're in such a risk-on environment that until we see a large momentum change, right now I'm going to stay kind of leveraged in terms of some call positions. Of course, not getting over leveraged to the point where I'd get my pants pulled down on my knees, but to the point where it's like, hey, if we see a pullback, then that would not necessarily be detrimental. That's where I'm hanging out right now with my psychology, looking into, due diligence in terms of what expectations are for, if we see a little bit of a pullback, expecting more of the end of the year rally, I would agree with that. I agree with what the market is right now, where the market is in terms of predictions, what they are predicting, and I agree with that move. So we'll see what happens. Peace out, take care, and I'll catch you guys later.